Hey guys, welcome back to Global Sports Network, and this is the Showdown. I am Alan Teetle with
Cameron Banks.
All right, and we're here to talk down some topics today. What we got first, Cameron?
Well, let's check this out. Okay, cool. So the UFC is celebrating their 25th year as a sports powerhouse. Boxing's kind of falling off a little bit. How you feeling about this exchange from UFC being the top thing now to boxing kind of falling off?
Boxing falling off for me, like growing up watching boxing, watching the Mike Tysons, the Evander Holyfields, Lennox Lewis of the world. It's really a bummer to me to see that boxing has really just fallen to the wayside. I mean, it's still a big deal. You still got the HBOs and the Showtime boxing, but I mean, let's be real. UFC has taken the brunt of the press and just the overall fandom from away from boxing because it's more interesting. You have multiple different types of fighting styles. You have fights all the time. You have different levels of fighting. You have the Bellators, you have the K1, you have UFC, and then you have the Ultimate Fighter, which is a reality show. And who doesn't love reality TV?
True, very true.
So I mean, it's a sad to see that boxing is coming on, but UFC is here to stay.
Yeah, UFC is definitely one of those sports powerhouses that's going to be the most entertaining for me, especially. I love the fact that they have so much more talent. Now, not to say that boxing doesn't have talent, but it's not as interesting as it used to be. You could even argue that boxing had to go borrow from the UFC to get a big star to come make them relevant. The Money Mayweather fight and the Conor McGregor fight is the one I'm talking about.
For sure.
How do you feel about the fact that Floyd Mayweather might be one of the quintessential boxers of that time, and it's not really looking like he's that dominant?
I mean, Floyd, when he came through when he was younger, I mean, he was a great fighter, still is a great fighter, but I mean, I think we agree on this, like he's more of a businessman than he is a fighter. I mean, he picks fights now based on how much money he can make after the fact. And I mean, when you line him up next to the Tysons and the Holyfields and the Foremans of the world, of like the late 90s to now, I mean, I personally don't think he stands up to those guys, but I mean, that's not for me to say. I mean, he's the most famous boxer on the planet at this time.
Yeah, I've always seen Floyd Mayweather as a businessman first and then a fighter next. I can't take anything away from his record. He's done what he's done. But the fact that you have an 0-0 boxer versus some man that's 51-0, that fight should have never been sanctioned. I don't know whose idea that was, but I know somebody's pockets got a lot fatter after that fight.
Oh, yeah.
And it was both of those guys and also maybe the boxing organization as well.
Most definitely.
And it saddens me to see that boxing not only has shrank as far as exposure, but also in their talent. It used to be heavyweight boxing was the thing that you needed to watch. The Joe Lewises, the Muhammad Ali's, the Lennox Lewis, the Foremans. Now we're looking at little small guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, GGG, Canelo. These guys are really small. These are lightweight guys. Guys that are my size, just a little bit more bulkier. So it's really sad to see that boxing is almost diminished in their exposure as well as their talent as well. Maybe they can bounce back. I don't think so. But there's a lot of UFC fights that I'm looking forward to coming up.
What we got?
Man, we got a couple of fights going on. We got Gaethje versus Vic. That's going to be August 25th. I'm really looking forward to see what they can do. Those guys have been talking a lot of trash from social media to the press conferences. We also got Woodley versus Till.
Right.
Now, Tyron Woodley is a champion, man. I'm talking about a champion's champion. So in that weight class, I'm really looking forward to see Darren Till, who's undefeated, come against that man. And it looks like a fight that both of them are going to have a disadvantage in.
I mean, we got Khabib on the 8th, right?
Oh, man. We got Conor versus Khabib. Possibly one of the biggest fights of the UFC's career ever. Outside of maybe this Lesnar and Cormier fight, and maybe if John Jones can get that stuff together and come back. But it looks like Conor Khabib is going to be the fight to watch. Who you got in this fight?
I'm going to have to go with Khabib. I really am. I know you like Conor. I think Conor's got it all. But I would like to really see Khabib come out and just stun him.
Yeah, it seems like people are going two ways on this fight. It's either going to be a man versus a child on the ground getting beat up, meaning Conor's going to get beat up by Khabib, or we're going to see Conor knock out Khabib with that left hand. And we all know Conor is a great striker. He's one of those guys that has a great stand-up game. But if it ever goes to the ground, we're going to see Khabib and what he really can do.
And he would finish it quickly. If they got him on the ground, it would be over.
I'm scared, but I really want to see if Khabib can even make the weight. He had a lot of problems with weight cuts, and I want to see Khabib be able to go down to that weight class, be able to dominate, because he's an undefeated Dagestanian. The guy is a monster. He's trained in the mountains for his entire life. His dad was a world champion in 3 different classes of fighting. So I'd like to see Khabib continue this amazing career that he has and possibly knock off one of the greatest UFC fighters in that weight class we've seen. It's really good to see. So we're going to move on a little further. How about that? What you got for us, Alan?
All right, guys. We're moving on to NFL records that will never be broken. And that can be good records or bad records. So, like, just for an example, Brett Favre. Is that interception record ever going to be broken? Because I hope not.
Man, I'm telling you something right now. 297 of those.
It's unreal. It's unreal. He threw so many touchdowns, and he's Brett Favre. You know, I mean, he's the Iron Man. He's got it all in his briefcase of stuff to use. But will anyone ever touch that interception? Probably not, because just the way the game is played now, you know, the coaches are controlling, you know, where are we going to throw here, this, and that. Brett Favre had the keys to the castle. I mean, he was making those calls on the field and doing whatever he had to do to win those games. Why the interceptions were so high. But I would like to see, you know, the games that he had high interceptions, I bet you they still win those games.
Yeah, I might have misspoken on that. It wasn't 297.
No.
It was 336 interceptions over his career. 297 consecutive starts.
And then leading on to that, I don't think that record will ever be broken.
No.
Because, I mean, 297 consecutive starts in the NFL, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, guys today, I mean, they get sat for rest, concussion protocol. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we still liked to not know what concussions were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the NFL would just be like, oh, you got another concussion, get back on the field. Now, with CTE and all these other degenerative brain disorders, they don't mess around with that. Anybody who has a sniff of a concussion, they're off the field for 2 weeks.
Well, number 4, I believe he'll always go down as one of the greatest gunslingers of all time. That guy would chunk that thing all across the field. I thought it was a brilliant show of character for Brett Favre. He was also a ball player on top of being a quarterback, and that's what I appreciate about him.
For sure.
I believe you're right. I don't think that they'll ever see another quarterback start that amount of games because of all the protocol changes and everything that's going down. And also it comes down to the fact that Brett Favre was just that guy for that franchise. I don't see anybody else outside of Aaron Rodgers being the face of the Green Bay Packers. You know, I think that Brett Favre is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
For sure.
So to see him hold one of my favorite records, you know, is the consecutive starts. But to see that interception one, it hurts me. You know, the only people that came close to his starting record would be Peyton Manning. He had 227 consecutive starts, and then right after that, his little brother Eli. 222, and then he got benched. We all saw that for ourselves.
It was very sad seeing Eli get so far. I mean, he would probably be the only player to get even really close to that 297 starts. But, I mean, with the last year, with that terrible coaching staff, and they decided to bench their starting quarterback over the last, 8-9 years in lieu of, I don't even know who it was, some backup. And, I mean, they lost out those couple of games where he didn't start.
Yeah, so I believe it's safe to say that Favre is far ahead of the rest.
Okay.
Sure. So another record that I really appreciate is Marvin Harrison. In 2002, you saw Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison link up for some beautiful football. And in that season, Marvin Harrison caught 143 passes. We haven't seen anybody come as close to that until we saw Julio Jones and Antonio Brown in the same year catch 136. And a lot of people didn't realize that, but the year prior to that year, Antonio Brown caught 129 of those. The only thing that I find the most impressive about this record is Marvin did it at the age of 30.
Yep.
So that shows that a receiver in his late age can still put up a Hall of Fame and a record book numbers. Do you think that was a really good performance by him?
Most definitely. I don't think that there's any question. I mean, getting into the later years of your career and still being able to produce at that level, it's unheard of.
Yeah, it really is. But there is a silver lining in this record that I think that a lot of people need to address is that this year, Antonio Brown just made the cover of Madden. True. I know you've been playing Madden, and you know that anytime you're on the cover of Madden, you're probably one of the best players in the league at that time. Also, Antonio just turned 30. So let's see if number 84 can knock off number 80 for that top spot in the record books. I'd like to see that happen.
All right.
There's another guy that I want to talk about, and this is one of those records that I hope will be beaten and that'll never be touched again, is Reggie Bush in 2016 carried the ball 12 times for a total of -3 yards. One of the worst performances in NFL history. How do you feel about Mr. USC Reggie Bush falling from grace like that?
Watching Reggie Bush get to the NFL and not live up to the hype was probably one of the most heartbreaking things of my young sports fan career, I guess. I don't even know. Seeing him go from being the number one football player in the country for years and then going to the New Orleans Saints where everyone thought he was just going to explode. And then he just fizzled. Yeah. He just fizzled. Everyone thought that his speed would translate. But like we all know, moving from college to the NFL, everyone's as fast as you are.
Yeah.
So you're 4.4, 4.2, anything like that, it's over with. Yeah. Everybody can run a 4.4, and you're going to get caught quickly.
Yeah, truly. And like you just said, it's almost like you even the playing field once you get to the pros. And also, I believe that there is something in there that nobody's talking about. It's that Kardashian curse. Reggie, you should have just left her alone, because as soon as you left that Kardashian, your whole career went down the drain.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that Reggie can find a new thing. I know he's doing a lot of sports broadcasting, but I'm glad that he left his career off and just decided to go another route.
Agreed.
There's another record that I wanted to talk about, man. Consecutive losses.
Okay.
We had the 76 to 77 Bucks lose 26 straight games. Can this record be beaten, or do you see it ever being broken?
I think the only way that record is ever really broken is if the Cleveland Browns do it again this year and lose 15 to 16 games. I don't think that's going to happen, but with Hugh Jackson at the helm, I think anything is possible.
That's very true, man. I think that they got to get it together for the Browns. I know the only team we saw come close to that was the Lions. I believe they lost 19 straight.
Right.
Oh, that was an embarrassment. They stunk up the joint. So hopefully this record is safe in the record books. They can stay away from that. But I think the NFL is a lot more balanced. Any given Sunday, a team can have their number called, and we could see something change amongst that. So I'm really optimistic about this upcoming NFL and to see it more balanced out to where we see teams like the Rams and the Vikings now getting the top of the power rankings when they used to be an afterthought as far as anything goes. So I like this new NFL that we're coming into.
All right.
Another record that I just want to touch on before we get out of here on that is the fact that our own Houston Texans and Oilers hold spots in the record books. We have George Blanda, who threw 42 picks in a season to make the record books. That man was a gunslinger as well. He's right up there with Brett Favre as one of those guys. That's great. Hurt my heart to see George Blanda go down like that. Also, one of my favorite Texans quarterbacks outside of Tony Banks was my guy. I remember watching in 2002, David Carr get sacked 76 times.
Yep.
Grueling to watch. Do you think this new Texans team can have a better quarterback that won't get sacked as much and won't throw that many picks in the season?
I think that the only reason that this record hasn't gotten close again for the Houston Texans is because now we have Deshaun Watson. He can run away from getting sacked. And he can run out of bounds, he can toss the ball out of bounds, whatever, and that is not going to lead to a sack. But, I mean, having David Carr come in at that time and not having the offensive line to protect him, that is the reason that man's career fell apart.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's be real, he had to have so many concussions after taking, 76?
Yeah, 76.
76 sacks. I mean, he was just hurt. He couldn't stand back there with any kind of confidence because he knew that the five guys in front of him weren't giving him any help at all.
Man.
And moving from there to the New York Giants where he was a backup, I mean, even then he would say that, his first couple of years in the league, he didn't know what it took to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to practice, not knowing how to meld with his guys. And that hurt him.
Yeah.
He didn't have the foresight to know that he needed to train harder to get better.
Right.
And it's one of those sad things that you see happen more often than not.
I really believe that because he got sacked that many times, it broke his confidence. He was a great quarterback in college, and even his brother now is showing us what the Carr family can do when they have a great team in line in front of him. So I'm really hopeful that David didn't suffer from any CTE injuries or any type of whiplash from all those hits. Hopefully we don't ever have to see the Texans get into the record book with such a terrible record like that.
Yeah.
So moving on, we talked a little bit about Hugh Jackson's Browns. We're seeing them as a featured team on the Hard Knocks this year.
Right.
How are you feeling about first of all, the Hard Knocks episode, and also about the Browns in general this year?
I really like where the Browns are going. I'm not a huge fan of Hugh Jackson, but looking at the choices that they've made to better their overall philosophy as a football team are huge. You bring in guys like Jarvis Landry, Tyrod Taylor, Carlos Hyde. I mean, these guys are going to change your philosophy as a football team. Outside of your coaching philosophy, you're in the locker room guys that are there every single day, and they're going to mold this team of, I can't remember what you said earlier, but this team of guys who don't look like they really want to take that next step.
Yeah.
And especially with Tyrod coming in and being that field general and being that guy that people can count on is going to change this team for the better and fast.
I think they haven't seen a lot of what Tyrod and even Hugh, for the most part, is bringing to the table. I know Tyrod, they've made it a point to talk about how he gets up 2 or 3 hours before practice to get out there on that field. And you and I talked about how Hugh Jackson went up to Baker Mayfield. It's like, hey, what are you doing to better yourself? because as a rookie, you get to decide how you start your career as an NFL quarterback. You can either be relaxed and take the money, even though Uncle Sam takes half of that, or you can step up to the plate and take this franchise to the next level.
And that leads me back to what I said about David Carr. I mean, you look at Baker Mayfield, he's not putting in that extra work, and neither did David Carr.
Right.
So, I mean, is Baker Mayfield going to fall into that same trap of not preparing enough to be that franchise guy?
Right. I think that the mainstream media, I know we here at Global Sports Network are not biased. We give everybody that heat. We give everybody that work. It doesn't matter who you are. But I think that the mainstream media is really focused and they're in love with Baker Mayfield and what he can do for the Browns. But I don't think even in this first preseason game he did enough to take Tyrod's spot.
Oh, no, not at all. Not even close. I mean, you look at what Baker did, and of course he made a couple of great throws. His mobility in the pocket and getting outside, great. But when you look at what Tyrod Taylor brings to this football team, he brings age with experience, and he brings the overall winning mentality. I mean, let's be real. He's been on the Bills for how long?
Way too long.
And he knows what a losing football team feels like. He's done feeling that way. Jarvis Landry is done feeling that way. These guys are going to come in here and change the game for them. And thinking that Baker Mayfield is going to take Tyrod Taylor's job after maybe week 4, week 6, maybe even week 8 at the midpoint of the season, I don't think it's going to happen.
Nah.
I don't see it happening anytime soon. I would much rather see Tyrod taking them to the playoffs than Baker.
Yeah. Well, see, the Browns are in my division with my Steelers, so I can't even think about them being in the playoffs right now. But I do see Tyrod being the person that's going to take them to the promised land because of what he, like you said, because of the experience, because he knows how it feels to lose. And coming into an organization that has built themselves around basically tanking for the past few years, I'd like to see that their defense is now coming up to speed, their offense with the addition of Jarvis Landry, and even Todd Haley as offensive coordinator. Todd, stay away from the Steelers. Leave us alone. Don't use any of our plays. All right?
Calm down.
Like, I'm telling you, man, it hurt my heart to see that. But I think that that's what the Browns need is a jump start and a coach and also a team players that are willing to tell them, hey, this is what we've been, the Cleveland Clowns, but let's now become the Cleveland Browns and show this entire organization and the world that we're not a joke anymore. We're not a laughingstock.
Yep. I completely agree.
So, hey, everybody, we appreciate you all for being here. Please continue to leave comments. We're reading those. We are going at those and looking for topics of our upcoming shows. Definitely get back to me and Alan. We love being here with you all, and we can't thank you enough for supporting us. I'm Cameron Banks.
I'm Alan Tito.
We're here with Global Sports Network, and we will see you next week.
Appreciate it, guys.